Hey everybody, how are you? It's been a few days and I decided I wanted to sit down with you today and tell some ghost stories. It is spooky season and it's one of my favorite times of the year. I love everything ghosty and spooky and dark and delicious, and it's just such a great time of year. However, I do want to start off by saying I got some fun announcements at the end, so I hope you'll stick around to the end because there are a couple cool things I want to tell you about that are coming up for my channel, and you might really enjoy them. So hang on to the end, please. Anyway, how many of you believe in ghosts? If you believe in ghosts, I would love to hear about your experiences in the comments, or just why you believe. And if you don't believe in ghosts, I would love to know why as well. I do believe in ghosts, or I believe in something. I don't know if I am not always comfortable with the term ghosts because I think that word comes with some, negative or spooky connotations that I would not like having them associated with me. So I try not to assign them to other people, dead or alive. So I don't know what you would want to call them, but I do believe in them. I've had some experiences, and it's just, it's not something I can easily dismiss. But what I want to talk about today is Michigan lighthouses. Now, Michigan lighthouses are numerous. We have a lot of shoreline, so we have a lot of lighthouses. Now, a lot of people assume every lighthouse is haunted. I don't necessarily believe that. I don't believe that just because a space is old that necessarily means it's haunted. However, there are some that have compelling evidence for a haunting. The one I'm going to talk about today is one I have a bit of personal experience with. So the Big Bay Lighthouse overlooks Lake Superior. It was built in 1897. And the way the house is set up is it's like a duplex. So one side is for the lighthouse keeper, the other side is for the assistant lighthouse keeper. Being a lighthouse keeper is lonely work. I mean, you're out essentially in the middle of nowhere, and you're there really by yourself, just you and the assistant keeper, most of the time. And that can be a very lonely existence. But and I think that's one of the reasons why lighthouses lend themselves to the assumption that they're haunted, because the life of a lighthouse keeper was very lonely. And I would imagine that there are many stories about lighthouse keepers, falling into a depression and so forth, and maybe taking some drastic measures to cope with that depression. So, I mean, it makes sense that people would assume that every lighthouse is haunted. This particular lighthouse, though, is the one we're going to focus on today. So this lighthouse overlooks Lake Superior. It was built in 1897. The first lighthouse keeper there was William Pryor. And William Pryor had, obviously, an assistant lighthouse keeper who he felt, after having spent some time away and coming back to see work was not done, he just believed, rightly so probably, that this guy was not doing the job, and he fired him. He hired his son to work as the assistant lighthouse keeper. One day, in April of, I think it was 1907, I'm going to have to double check that. I neglected to write that down, and I apologize. At any rate, his son had an accident on the property, and he had to be taken to the hospital in Marquette, and a couple of months later he passed away from his injuries. His father, William Pryor, became very depressed after this happened. And one day in June of that year, he went off into the woods with a shotgun and strychnine, and there was worry, once it was discovered he had done this, that he was going off to kill himself, because he was obviously quite depressed over the death of his son. He was never found. They sent out a search party. They never found him. I believe it was about a year later, a someone went out hunting and they found something that was compelling, to say the least. And I'm just going to read to you. There was an entry in a journal that was made. So over a year later, the following entry was made in the station log. Mr. Fred Babcock came to the station at 12:30 p.m. While hunting in the woods 1.5 miles south of the station this noon, he found a skeleton of a man hanging to a tree. We went to the place with him and found that the clothing and everything tally with the former keeper of this station, who has been missing for 17 months. So all evidence points to that was William Pryor, and he did indeed go off to the woods to kill himself. And this was in 1901. There, now I have the year correct. So eventually this lighthouse was automated. That happened in the 1950s. In 1961, the lighthouse was sold to a private owner. To this day, the lighthouse is still open, and it serves as a bed and breakfast, last I knew. Why am I talking about this particular lighthouse? I'm talking about this one because I've had a personal experience there. Personal experiences are so, I mean, they're not things that you can really prove. They're not things that you have really any evidence for whatsoever, other than to say this happened to me, and people can believe you or not believe you. So this happened about, I'm thinking 13 years ago, because it was before my son was born, but my niece was born. So it was about 13 years ago. My mom and my sister and I had gone up north to just do a camping trip and look at lighthouses and just play tourist for the weekend, which is like a favorite thing for northern Michiganders to do, because a lot of us come from tourist towns and it's fun to go to other places and play tourist ourselves. So that's what we did. Part of our weekend of tourism included getting a map of the lighthouses in the area and just going to these various places. And one of them was the lighthouse at Big Bay. So we get to the lighthouse, and as soon as we cross the property line onto the property, I feel heaviness. Like something was just weighing down, like almost like pressing down on me in a non-tangible way. And it should be noted, during this time in my life, I frequently struggled with severe bouts of depression. And I was not necessarily in the best frame of mind when we went there. So we crossed the line, the property line, onto the official Big Bay lighthouse property. And I feel this heaviness like bearing down on me, and I just immediately did not like it there. I hated it there, in fact. But you know, we were there to look at the lighthouse, and I know that my mom and my sister really wanted to do that, and so I thought it'll go away. You know, the more I walk around and look at the place, the better I'll feel, because I thought maybe I was just, you know, tired of being in the car, because we'd been in the car going here and there all day long, and I thought, well, if I just get out and walk around, I'll feel better. That did not happen. The longer I was there, the worse I felt. And, you know, I have an interest in history. I love going to places that have historical value and reading up on them, seeing how they might have looked back in the day and so forth. So it wasn't that I didn't want to be there. I love places like that. But there was something about this place that I just really, really did not like. So we walked through the house, got to tour the property a little bit, and I said to my mom, who had the guidebook that we had picked up, I said, "Is this place haunted?" And she looked in the book, which had like an indicator as to which lighthouses were said to be haunted and which were not. And she said, "No, this one's not haunted." And I said, "Are you sure?" And she said, "It's not haunted. It would be in the book if it was." So I'm like, well, okay, but something creepy is here, because I do not feel safe. I didn't tell her that, but I thought, you know, something's not right here, or something's up. So we go through the house, we look at the buildings outside, and then we go off to the woods. There is a path you can take that leads away from the house and over by the cliffs and off into the woods eventually. Well, we got away from the house and we're looking over the cliffs, and I will swear this to the day I die, I felt something pushing on my back and saying to me, jump. And I stepped away from the edge because I was right up to the edge of the cliff and looking over. I was not in a good state of mind. And then again, something said, jump. And I said to my mom and my sister, I'll wait for you in the car, take as long as you want, but I have to get out of here. You know, and I just said I wasn't feeling well. So my sister and my mom kept touring the property for, I don't know, a half hour or so. And I'm just in the car. And as soon as I got off the property and into the parking lot, I was fine. I didn't feel depressed anymore. I didn't feel that weight anymore. I felt just fine. And that was probably one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. To this day, it's one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. So my mom and my sister come to the car and said, you know, that was a cool lighthouse or whatever. It's a little on the, you know, odd side, you know, just there's a strange feeling there, but whatever. They enjoyed it. I clearly did not. So we leave the property, we drive down the road. Eventually we make our way to the visitor center in the area. Yeah, the person working there is asking us, you know, how we're doing and what sites we've seen. And my mom tells them that we had just been to the lighthouse at Big Bay. And he says, oh, that place is famously haunted. And I looked at my mom and I said, I told you there was someone there. And the person goes on to say that during the off season, he is a photographer, and he went to Big Bay to shoot some pictures for the owner of the bed and breakfast, or maybe it was a tourism magazine. I don't remember. But he said when he got there, he walked in the house and he immediately felt like someone was standing next to him. You know that feeling you get when you know somebody is standing really close to you, but you can't see them? He said that was what he felt. And when you walk in, there's like a cellar or a basement off to the side. And he said that door was wide open. After he got that sensation that someone was standing next to him, he really felt like he needed to leave. He was not wanted there. And I don't remember if he said anything out loud, like, should I leave, or anything like that. I don't recall. But what happened next was this basement door was being held open by a large, heavy rock. It wasn't a small thing. It was something big. It was substantial. It had weight to it. So this thing, this rock, goes flying across the floor. The basement door slams shut. And he felt like that was all the indication he needed that he was not wanted there. And he packed his stuff and left. He did not finish the shoot, and he never went back. And keep in mind, this happened in the middle of winter. That's what the off-season is in northern Michigan. Winter is our off-season, especially in the upper peninsula. There's just not a lot going on. So he was out there all by himself. He didn't have an assistant with him. There was no bed and breakfast. There was no innkeeper there. There was nobody there, just him, because it was the off-season. And if you're from a tourist area that kind of shuts down in the off-season, you know that it can get very quiet and very lonely. So he got out of there, and he was telling us this story, and I told my mom, I told you there was something there. I knew it. And to this day, you know, all these years later, I have never been back. I have never wanted to go back. Although I am curious as to how, or as to what I might feel if I went back there, because I'm in such a better state of mind now. My mental health is much better today than it was all those years ago. So I do wonder. I would not want to go up there by myself, But if somebody ever wanted to take a road trip with me and say, let's go up to Big Bay and see if you still, you know, feel like jumping off a cliff, I'd be up for that. So any local people who feel like taking a road trip, hit me up. So that is my ghost story. I have had other experiences. Growing up, I often heard music. I remember one time my brother and I, so we were staying with my grandma, and I remember one morning I woke up to the sound of music, and it wasn't like radio music. It was just like every note played all at once, but it was played in such a beautiful way that it sounded ethereal. And I remember waking up and sitting up in the bed and looking around, and I'm still hearing the music as I'm sitting up looking around. I'm hearing it clear as day and looking for a potential source of music. Like I wondered, you know, did my grandmother have an alarm clock that played music to wake everybody up? You know, is there some place this music could be coming from? And I'm looking around and I'm seeing that there is not. And I remember, so my brother was in the bed next to me. We were little. It was like, you know, and I said to him, don't you hear that music? And he said, no, I don't hear any music. You know, he's like, you weirdo, there's no music playing. And so later, when my grandmother got up, and, you know, because this was apparently early in the morning when this happened, my grandmother got up and I asked her about the music that played in the morning. And she said, what music? What are you talking about? So there was nobody who knew what the music was that I was talking about or where it could be coming from. And, you know, I just kind of shrugged it off. Well, then it happened again later. Like a few years after that, it happened one more time that I can remember. And it was the same thing. I'm hearing this music clear as day. It is some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard. There is no evidence source for this music. No radios, no anything. And I'm the only one who can hear it. I don't know. I have no idea what that was. To this day, I haven't a clue about that. And the second time I heard it, I was sharing a room with my sister. We shared a bedroom growing up, and I remember asking her if she heard the music, and she said, you know, again, it was like, no, you weirdo. So, you know, it just, okay. I was hearing things nobody else was hearing. And I thought, you know, I don't know. I mean, I've talked with people since who have also had that experience where they have heard music that nobody else can hear. And they describe it the same way that I did, that it's just like every note played at once, but in the most beautiful way. It's not grating at all. It's not, you know, it's not hard to listen to. It's actually quite soothing. So even though nobody else with me could hear it, other people have had the same experience. If somebody has any idea what that might be, I would love to hear from you. I have also had experiences where I hear somebody saying my name, and it's never a voice that I recognize. And this hasn't happened to me in a while, but when I was a kid, I would hear Stephanie. Then I would look around and there would be nobody. And then I would hear again, Stephanie. And nobody was there. So I don't know. I have no idea what that was. So I've had some odd experiences. I want to hear from you what your experiences have been. I know that I've talked with some of my regular viewers on other sites. You know, I know you through Facebook or Twitter, and you've had experiences. I would love it if you would share them here or even make your own videos and I can link people to those, because I think that it's just kind of fascinating that so many people have these experiences, and we just, you know, unless they can be sensationalized and made into a TV show, people don't really talk about them that much. And I think we should, because, you know, clearly if there are people having these experiences, they aren't these weird, abnormal, creepy things that, you know, so many TV shows and so forth make them out to be. They're not that unusual. As to why they're not that unusual, I mean, we could speculate all day long. and I'm sure people do, but I don't know what the answer is to that. So if you have had an experience, I would really and truly love to know what it is. It can be, it doesn't have to be creepy. It can be, you know, somebody that you loved came to visit you and just reassure you that they're okay or that you're going to be okay. Maybe it is a creepy experience you've had where something happened that really scared you and you've never been able to forget it and you don't know what it was. I mean, if you were to share it in comments, maybe somebody can help you walk through that and make sense of it, because it is scary if you are someone who doesn't necessarily believe in the paranormal and then you're having these experiences that you can't explain. It can be very jarring to have to try to make sense of that when it defies everything that you believe. So share it here in the comments and maybe we can all walk through it together and make some sense of it. Speaking of making sense of things, I'm only somewhat sure what I'm doing with my eye makeup right now. I'm not 100% there. I'm just kind of going with it and seeing where we end up, which is kind of how I live my life anyway. It doesn't always end well, but I have some hope for this makeup. Maybe. Oh my goodness. I don't know though, you guys. This is, I'll be able to salvage it though. I can make this work. Yes, indeed I can. So, I'm going to pause this video, and I know you all probably hate it when I do that, but keep in mind these videos are not about the makeup, and I have to keep telling myself that, because if I don't, then I feel really much worse about pausing than I probably should. So I'm going to pause and figure out what the heck I'm doing with my eyes, and then I'll be back in a minute. Okay? Alright, I had to start a new video because I just spent several minutes babbling to you about something that didn't even get recorded. So I'm starting a new one so I can tell you. Okay, so my son gave me permission to share these things with you. He's had some paranormal experiences himself, or at least we think they're paranormal. We've never had an investigator come out and verify this, so bear with me. He's had multiple experiences over the years that I think can be explained as paranormal, although when he had these experiences, I honestly I dismissed them because I thought it was an overactive imagination. And I did what I knew to do to try to help him just in case it was real, but at the same time I'm thinking, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this child is incredibly creative and imaginative, and I just wasn't sure what to think. So, you know, when he told me he was seeing a person in the house, I said, well, let's just tell them they're not welcome here and they'll leave. They'll leave us alone. That did not happen. I've had many experiences with my son where, you know, he's, especially at night, he comes to talk to me. I might be laying in bed reading a book or something, and he comes to talk to me, and then he, you know, looks in a different direction, and he's startled, and he backs away and covers his eyes because what he's seeing is so terrifying. So, now I come from a religious background in which instances like that would be blamed on video games, would be blamed on music. I came from a faith tradition that told me that I could unwittingly invite evil spirits into my house through the music I listen to, or the games I play, or the movies I watch. I mean, pretty much anything. And people really did have the belief that it was just that easy to invite evil spirits into your house, that all you had to do was listen to the wrong thing and, you know, Satan comes knocking on the door. Now, I don't believe that anymore. I did back then. I don't believe it now. I think you have to be a lot more intentional with the invitation than simply turning on a song that some might consider, quote, evil or satanic, and assume that's going to be enough to invite an evil spirit into your house. So, and I say that because, you know, my son does like to play video games that are a little bit scary, but I don't believe that simply being a little bit scary is the same thing as intentionally inviting something into your home. So I want to get that out of the way right now. I don't believe in that. But he has had experiences of seeing people in the house. There's a young boy he has seen peeking around the corner at him, and then when he looks at him, he goes away. He has seen faces in the mirror that don't belong to him, obviously. And I'll admit too, I mean, we live in a basement apartment, so there's a part of our apartment, and it's a walkout, so there's part of our apartment that is fully underground, and there's, you know, places in this apartment that truly creep me out. Our bathroom is located right by the furnace room, and if you are somebody who is at all familiar with hauntings and so forth, you know that those places like furnace rooms where people don't tend to go are places where people who want to be left alone tend to hang out. So I am at the point with the things my son has experienced and the, you know, just the general creepiness of that part of the house, because these experiences often happen there. I'm at the point of thinking, well, maybe there's something to what he's saying and it's not just an active imagination. So I'm curious, especially for people who are, you know, fellow dabblers in the paranormal, what do you think's going on? Do you think there's somebody here? I will say, I don't think that if there is someone here, they're here to cause any harm. They kind of just make themselves known and then do their thing. They're just kind of like, hey, I'm here, and then they move on. They don't really, like, cause any havoc. So do you think that there's somebody here? I'm sure that, you know, you'd have to do more investigating to know for sure, but, you know, is somebody just hanging out here? Is somebody, you know, there might be a whole history to this property that we don't even know about. And I'm curious as to how many of you maybe have had that experience where you move onto a property, weird things start happening, can't explain it, and then you investigate the history of the property and suddenly it all makes perfect sense. Because I do think that, and I've always, you know, I believed this for a really long time, that land holds on to memories and houses can hold on to memories. And I think even after the house is gone, the land still remembers things. So even if you are living in a house, you know, that's not original to the property, you know, the house where the events happen might be gone, but the land might still remember. And maybe I'm weird for thinking that, but I mean, that's just a belief I've had for a really long time. And it's one that I probably won't let go of anytime soon because I've just read too many things. I've heard of too many experiences where people are experiencing odd things that can't be explained, and then they start investigating the property they're on, and they realize that there was a building there where awful things happened at one time, and it makes perfect sense. It makes their experiences make perfect sense all of a sudden. So that is why I hold that belief. But I'm curious if you have ever had anything happen in your house that you can't really explain, but you can't dismiss as being just imagination. And it doesn't have to be a creepy thing. It could be somebody, you know, from your past is coming to visit you and say hello and just let you know that they're fine and you don't need to worry. You know, it could be a scary thing. Maybe you've had some experiences that have kept you up at night because you can't make sense of them and they alarmed you. It could be a lot of things. So I'm just curious what your experiences have been, and and if you would mind sharing them. It really messed me up when I had to start this video over again. Okay, I'm gonna pause now, finish up, and then I'll be right back with a couple of really fun announcements, so hang on. Hey everybody, so I'm back now and I've got my face all put together. So I told you I had a couple cool things to tell you about, and one of them is happening this Saturday. I'm going to be interviewing on this channel, on video, a really amazing friend of mine. I love her dearly, and because of her, I have found an unexpected fascination with bricks. A specific kind of brick. What is that all about? Well, you'll have to tune in and find out. I do, however, have one of them here in the background. I can't orient myself. It's right there. Okay. It is called A Hidden Brick. And you'll have to tune in and find out all of what, you know, what hidden bricks are all about. Secondly, I wanted to tell you, I have another book. So I have put together a book of poetry, and it appears backwards in your video, but I will put up an image of it that is actually facing the correct way. This is a collection of Blackout and magnetic poetry. It's called Fragments. If you're not familiar with Blackout poetry, it is when you take a written work, whether it's a book, a magazine article, whatever it might be, and you basically eliminate all the words except the ones that you want to use to create a poem. And then magnetic poetry is just words that are on magnetic tiles, and you arrange them to make a poem. This book is a really powerful one for me. Now, if you've been with me for a while, you know that last year, right around the same time, I launched a book called Raised Evangelical, Losing My Faith and Finding Myself. And that book was important for me to write because it was processing a lot of the stuff that I had been through, being raised in an evangelical culture, and, you know, the trauma that came out of that. And I had to process that for myself. And I also wanted to help other people out there who are processing similar trauma to know that they are not alone. So I wrote this book, and it really helped me. It's helped a lot of other people. But I'm at a phase in my deconstruction where I really want to move forward. And this book is about that. To create the poetry, I used all different kinds of publications, some of them being publications from evangelical sources. Hi, Jaden. And
subscribe to my YouTube channel, please.
And now I lost my train of thought. Okay, so I used some evangelical sources to create this poem, or this poetry. And some of the sources that I used were different magazines. I actually used the Bible for some of them. And it was very liberating for me. I was raised to believe that, you know, if you're evangelical, you've probably heard, touch not mine anointed, meaning that if somebody who is, quote, anointed is speaking out on behalf of God, you're not supposed to question them. And I was also raised to believe that, obviously, the Bible is not something that we are to question. So, to be able to take those publications and make them into something that reflected me was powerful. So I'm just going to read to you a poem that I wrote, a couple poems that I wrote, and I hope that it will inspire you to get the book and to try some of your own poetry. So this poem is called Channeling. My brain was locked. I fumbled with keys. I unlocked the door. The universal radio blared the live report. The God app can't load. This one is called Still. God is the enigma yet to be abandoned. And finally, this one is called The Garden. Again, we recognize the bounty of the female, whose fruit is mortal yet divine. So those are just a few of the poems from this book. This book is available on Amazon. It is not yet available in an ebook. I'm not sure if I'm going to release it that way because I think that the art matters and there is some artwork in here. And I don't think it would translate well on an ebook. I'm still thinking that over, but it is available in paperback on Amazon, and I will put a link in the description, and I hope you'll pick it up and let me know your thoughts and share with me some of your own creations. Anyway, I hope y'all are having a great day and you're enjoying this spooky season and you're enjoying these beautiful fall days that are going to lead us into the depths of winter, which I'm not in any way prepared for. Take care of yourselves, be good to each other, don't should on yourselves, don't should on each other. We're all going through stuff and we're going to get through this together by being kind and being supportive and being encouraging, and by understanding also that sometimes humans are going to human and we're not always going to do things perfectly, but the important thing is that we make amends and move forward when we know we've messed up. All right, I'll talk to you again real soon. Tune in Saturday, it's going to be awesome, and I'll see you later. Bye.